Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the CJRB Prado. This design is made by Ray Laconico. I got this particular unit off of Amazon. It was on super sale at the time and it was very enticing of a price, extremely affordable. I can't remember exactly what it was, but not to worry, I will be linking down the listing off of Amazon down in the description if you guys are actually interested in it. Now, I do want to mention right off the bat that there is one slight modification to this that makes it, in my opinion, a whole lot better than what it was before. Sorry, I'm 25 years old and I'm going through maturity. My voice is still cracking. I have Skiff thick washers in here, not the original bearings. And while typically crossbar locking knives with softer springs and washers tends to lead to kind of a not so satisfying action, this is quite a different story, especially for the price here. There's a whole lot of value in this model, but I did want to mention that up front because I think it is important in moving forward of how I'm going to talk about this knife. This comes with ceramic bearings caged in a nylon cage. I'm pretty sure it was nylon. It was like the white plastic one. It was good for what it was. It was fine. There's nothing really wrong with it, but there was something about it after it broke in. It just had a lot of what many people would call bearing roll, and it was very loud and kind of cheapy sounding. Now, I've experienced bearing roll amongst a decent spectrum of price ranges, up into the multi-hundreds to budget knives. It doesn't really matter. It happens sometimes, and it's a tolerancing issue when it comes to fitting the proper thickness of bearings within a particular design and a unit. Washers are a little bit easier to calculate spacing and all that kinds of things. It makes the things a little bit more simpler, but it's going to be a little bit tighter. The action isn't going to be as flowy as something with bearings. But as you can see, this thing is pretty darn smooth, and the tension of the Mega Springs on this are a delight, an absolute treat. But again, I do want to say that it was just a personal preference why I removed the stock bearings out of here. I didn't like them. It was too much bearing roll. It sounded cheap. It made the knife feel extremely cheap overall. But with the washers, it's going to slow things down a little bit. Your motion needs to be a little bit more deliberate. It is definitely a whole lot smoother and a little bit more satisfying. Again, in my opinion, to slow roll this out, this is definitely a lengthier, more hand-filling knife for sure. So if this is something that intrigues you and you want to have this as something for camping or maybe for some outside use, it's not super thin behind the edge and the tip isn't too dainty. I think this would stand up to some, of course, appropriate use, as a cutting tool, but I think it's robust enough to, fare well in the outdoors, definitely. And the washers just give it a more robust feel overall. So every once in a while you do need to give it the tiniest bit of wrist to get it out there, but it is still extremely smooth, and with washers it's just going to get smoother and smoother with time. Of course, it's going to keep gunk and debris out of within the pivot, which is really important, especially if you are actually going to be carrying it outside. So it's not just the typical pocket lane. You're going to have, dust and debris, the kinds of things like that getting inside your knife. And this thing is going to hold up a whole lot better than with the stock bearings. So let's just do the 7 size comparison size knives. I think I'm going to start changing the rotation of some of these knives potentially. I'm just not sure what to what. Let's start with the bigger ones first here, just to show how lengthy this actually is. This is a full tie MSI. Here is a Manix 2 Lightweight by Spyderco. As you can see, the Prado definitely falls pretty good between the two. Got a couple more here. The CMB Made Knives Predator By the time you guys are watching this, chances are the giveaway for the other customized one, it might already be finished or might still be going. It was only from Friday to Friday. So hopefully you guys entered to win. All you have to do is just go look at the video that says giveaway, win this knife for free, whatever the title was, and just comment. You got to be subscriber, legal age, all that good stuff. A Vision FG. So the Prado is definitely lengthier, but not by much. Both of these guys. Some smaller ones here. Free Tiger FT 2103. I actually got one of my brother-in-laws to let me sharpen the one I gifted them over Christmas, and they've gone almost a whole year without it needing to be sharpened. They're not knife people, they're not, doing edge retention testing, and it's D2, and he's barely asking me now, basically almost 11 months later, to sharpen it for him. So pretty good, right, for a budget knife. And then up here is the Native 5 Lightweight by Spyderco. And last but most definitely not least is the Pyrite Light. Something that that I'm pretty excited for is that CJRB actually announced that they're going to be, and you can see this on a post of theirs on Instagram, but they're going to be making a large Wharncliffe Pyrite Light, or alt blade. So it's probably going to be the same length as the Prado, if not maybe a hair bit longer overall. It's going to include a secondary locking system, which I've already seen some testing on the secondary lock, and honestly, I'm not too impressed. Hopefully they fix it before they actually put it on to production, but that's just my little sense on that. So, getting to talk about this knife, some of the little things that I think were worth mentioning is this is super, super easy to take apart and maintain. You have a captive pivot, but it is T on both sides, just because. You do have T8 for the body screws, T6 for the pocket clip, standard stuff. I'm pretty sure CJRB has milled clips that you can replace, and I believe the hardware on those milled clips would make it also T8. So it would essentially be an all T8 knife, which is pretty darn sweet. This knife is extremely simple when it comes to, I guess, cleaning out the pivot. Everything comes apart, and it just kind of stacks together in a way that's a whole lot simpler than what Benchmade or maybe a couple other brands have done when it comes to fiddling around and messing with the actual springs, the Omega springs that are in here. There is no other tension setting, just the one that it comes on, and it is very, very healthy. I do definitely enjoy it. It is proper for this size of knife. I don't think that the weight and mass of the knife has too much to play in why the action is as good as it is. And if you are a longer time viewer of my channel, you know that I am extremely, extremely picky when it comes to the tension of Omega spring knives. I'm not easy to satisfy when it comes to that because, unfortunately, I think a lot of Chinese OEMs are making really floppy, very underpowered Omega springs, but there are a couple that do stand out, like this guy, the CMB Brain Knife Predator. The new ones, which I would call like the 2.5 version, they have 3 different tension settings, which is cool. That's really all you need, versus like the clutch lock from Kaiser, which gives you 5, so it's just a little bit more customability. And another cheap one that I showed off earlier, this only has 1 tension setting, but the Omega springs on here are comically overpowered for the size of the knife, and it makes it extremely snappy, very obnoxious sounding, and it's a real treat to have. Those 2 are on bearings. This right here, this is the Kubi Hound, a design by Max. This design has not gotten a whole lot of love in the industry. I'm not too sure why. I think it's a pretty sweet knife, bordering a little bit on the tactical self-defense aesthetic, at least in some of the design with the handle and the blade shape and all. But there are actually washers in here, and it's awesome. Like, this is a really good washer action knife, And this also has 3 Omega Spring tension settings. I leave it smack in the middle, just as it came from the factory. I'm pretty sure it was in the middle when it came from the factory. And I've messed with it having a little bit lighter, a little bit stronger, and really how it came from the factory was just perfect. And this thing is running on washers, and as you can see, it's not the same as bearings, definitely not, but because of the positioning of the studs, how everything else, the fitment and all that, this thing's pretty darn awesome. And with the tiniest bit of side to side, just to have this thing be able to freely swing down without too much effort. This is a very, very thin and acute blade, so there's not much weight to it. So you do need to give it sometimes a little bit of encouragement to come down. The same exact thing with this Prado right here. Now it is definitely a larger, slightly thicker blade, but there's a little bit more length and mass to it overall just because it's just bigger, right? So it swings down a whole lot easier with a whole lot less encouragement needed. And again, in my opinion, it is more enjoyable with washers. With bearings, it's just a little bit more free-flowing. There's nothing really wrong with that. There is a lanyard standoff right there. It's all opened, kind of just a typical construction. Very simple, very minimal. There's not a whole lot to it. Really what you're paying for is just a larger crossbar locking knife with a clipped point. Now, the tip on this is a little bit higher than what I would prefer, but not that big of a deal. I still am planning to eventually grind this down to be at least a trailing straight clip. That would be pretty cool, just because of my personal preference. And visually speaking, I think that a trailing straight clip is a little bit more attractive, along with being a little bit more useful. I don't really need a whole lot of higher tipped belly in my day-to-day, and even now that I'm no longer in need of something to where I am constantly having to do utility cuts, I still then want to reprofile this blade a little bit. But I bought it, like with my own money. This wasn't sent to me. I'm not gonna talk crap about how the blade performed or how I didn't like it or this and that and the other. I did like it and enjoyed it quite a bit for what it is. My only comment is that the tip is just a little bit too high for me, and I knew that going into it. And I'm cool with that. It's fine. It's really not the end of the world. The blade material in here is the good old AR RPM 9. I've sharpened AR RPM 9 a multitude of times, and it's good stuff. It's actually pretty darn good stuff. It drops back to life very well. It's quite impressive, honestly. So I don't think I could ever actually get tired of this blade material as long as it's offered in appropriate settings. I think for what this knife comes in at, it is absolutely appropriate. I don't think there are any coated versions of this. This is just their cheapy satin with the sand polish, but their consistency when it comes to sand polish, it's still kind of all over the place. And as you can see, this thing is all gunked up. Yes, I do typically clean my knives before showing them off. I just didn't get a chance to. This is just tape and cardboard residue. The edge that I have on here, I believe it is a 17-degree edge, and it's not too aggressive looking. It looks pretty darn healthy, pretty consistent, even out to the tip there. I've had to sharpen it twice. So I did the initial reprofile after dulling out the factory edge, and then I sharpened it up again to do more edge retention testing and just seeing how this thing, how it actually feels in hand while I'm pushing through thicker and thicker material. I have a lot of like bulk grocery store boxes, because when we go shopping, we always end up grabbing like extra produce boxes, and those things are like triple walled corrugated, and they're pretty darn dense. This thing was an absolute treat going through everything. The push cuts on this thing, elite. It was so comfortable. And while I gave crap to the jimping on my unboxing, I didn't really think it was deep enough. When you're in it, when you're actually using this thing, I'm glad that it's there. I would still prefer something a little bit deeper and maybe a little bit further out, but you know, the fact that they put it there at all, I'm happy with it. I'm thankful for that. The sharpening choil and the plunge grind there, it is pretty healthy. You could see that no smile has happened after the reprofile and another sharpening. And I could say with full confidence that I could probably sharpen this thing another 4 or 5 times before seeing even the slightest little creep of a smile. So that's something that I'm very happy about too. CGRB and Artisan Cutlery, they are not known for doing a good execution of sharpening choil and plunge grind. I don't know why. They're just one of those companies that just refuses to listen to what people want, because this is a budget knife. This isn't an art knife. This is something that somebody purchases to beat on and use and sharpen it multiple times and get the absolute most amount of bang for their buck. That's what this product is. So that's, you know, a little rant that, you know, I've beaten to the ground far too many times, and will probably continue doing it because it's important. It really is important, especially to people who actually sharpen their own knives or sharpen other people's knives. It makes it a whole lot easier to stay off of the shouldering back over here. And even still, you hit it a little bit, I hit it. I was a little too careless with my stones, and I removed some material down right there. You could see the little mark right there. Whatever, not a big deal. This is a user knife. This thing has been beaten on quite a bit, and it's just gonna keep ticking. I have full confidence in this. The lockup on this, beautiful. Side to side play, absolutely minimal. I can crank it down pretty hard, and I won't be able to, you know, easily assist flick it down, but it'll be absolute zero side to side. I'll be able to wheel it out comfortably, that's for sure, but I won't be able to one-handed bring it down you know, super confidently. It would probably be like shake it there and then bring it down with my thumb. You can do that if you want absolutely zero play, but whatever. I'm okay with having a little bit of side to side when it comes to a knife that has washers. That's how I ran my Benchmates when I had them. That's how I had the RSKs that I had for a little bit. I had those running the same way with the tiniest bit of movement side to side, just to get the preferred action that I want, of course. Because this is a fully ambidextrous model, you can take the clip, put it on the other side. I'm very happy that they did that, because a lefty should be able to enjoy this knife just the same. Let's see if I can reverse flick it. Yeah, there we go. Kind of awkward at reverse flicking. I am ambidextrous with many things, but when it comes to knife deployment, my middle finger is not as used to it. There's not as much strength behind it, and I think my thumb is getting in the way too. There we go. Just lose a finger, I'd still post this anyway. This thing is very heavily skeletonized, and the weight on this is absolutely impressive. I don't have my scale with me at the moment, but I will post down what the actual weight is on this thing. I'll probably put it in the thumbnail, or I don't know, something, just so it's there so people know. But this thing is extremely lightweight for the amount of length and usable knife that you actually get, which is pretty awesome. This thing, in my opinion, it's a win. It really is a win. I do like it, despite the blade finish. I know I'm picky about that. The high tip, I'm picky about that. But the execution of it, wonderful. I think it's great. Even with the factory bearings and having the bearing roll, I was able to have it tight enough on the pivot where there was zero side to side. It's just that my ears were hearing something that I didn't find, you know, of quality to resemble quality, and that was the only issue. But when it came to the lockup and solidity of everything in every dimension, it was wonderful. It was everything it needed to be. It just sounded cheap to me. That wasn't it, but it's a cheap knife. That's what it is, and I think it serves a wonderful purpose for somebody looking for a larger, lengthier crossbar locking knife with this particular blade shape. The deployment method, maybe they really like something from Ray Laconico. Well, you know, this is it, really. I do know that there are premium versions of this. There are the radial milled, it's like a micro texture almost. but there are milled steel scales with polished S90V blades. I think that's pretty cool. CJRBs or Artisan Colors S90V, it's good stuff. It's not chippy. I've experienced it a little bit. I have confidence in it and their execution and heat treatment of that. I think that this is a wonderful platform to have S90V on because it is very slicey and you're gonna want to use this thing. It's pretty comfortable in hand. And I believe the steel ones, they are a lot weightier, of course, but they are also slightly contoured and have milling for added grip and texture and just visual appeal, because some people just like full metal. This may feel a little too light and dinky for you, and that's okay. But now there's a steel version of steel variants available with premium blade materials, and I think also steel variants that have this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, there's a S90V version of this that recently dropped, and it looks pretty darn sweet. I definitely won't be getting it because I have this and there's no reason for me to have that or check that out. But I'm glad I was able to check out this model because honestly, it's been sitting in the cart for a long time and I just never got it because of my opinions of the actual height of the tip itself. But I'm glad I finally pulled the trigger. I do definitely recommend it. I would also recommend, if you do enjoy washers, get washers. Get some thick skiff washers and you'll be very happy and satisfied with this. So that's it. If you guys like this video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing so I play more videos and content coming your guys' way. That being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.